Hello, I'm Dennis Drager. I'm a senior futurist with Shaping Tomorrow. This week's Trend Alert is focused on human rights. Now, considering the complex nature of this topic, I'm doing the summary a little differently from some of the previous summaries. First, I'm going to start with the key questions, and then I'll be going into and then I'm going to be using a foresight tool called CLA, which I'll explain a little bit later. So first off, the questions themselves, key questions. After climate change and runaway population growth, what greater global challenge exists than income and asset inequality? Are we creating cities that recognize the ingenuity and rights of those neglected others on whose backs the cities stand? What structures are needed to manage and secure big data algorithms and surveillance systems to preserve fundamental rights? Certainly, restrictions on freedom of movement and political expression remain far more extensive in China, but is China in fact the future? Now, like I say, we're going to use a foresight tool called CLA, which stands for Causal Layered Analysis. And for those of you who are not familiar with this, the idea is to dissect an issue into four main parts. Now, we won't get into the purpose of this today, but I think you'll find it very interesting to see the forecasts that come along with it. So we start off with the problem itself. What is the actual problem? And this is what technically we call the litany. But then we look at the systemic causes, but not just what's causing the issue, but also what problems is the issue itself causing. So where within the system does this issue stand? And then we take a look at the worldview. So what is the general discourse on the topic? How are organizations and individuals addressing the issue as far as the dialogue or the discourse is concerned? Then we dig a little bit deeper and look at some of the societal myths or some of the metaphors that are often used to describe the issue. How are these myths and metaphors driving the issue or steering the issue? All right, so let's dig in. So now, starting off with the litany, which again is just simply the problem itself. So what is the problem? Well, though one face of the current crisis is likely to be short-lived, scientists are predicting that the COVID-19 pandemic will peak by mid-year. Climate change, technological advances, and unprecedented levels of inequality mean that global disruption could become a norm in the coming decades, assuming it isn't already, of course. Also, being a purpose-driven organization in isolation is no longer enough to deal with climate change and rising inequality. So in other words, it doesn't matter how big or how small an organization you belong to or you lead, you need to start thinking about how these issues affect your organization and how your organization is affecting these issues. Now again, we're not just looking at what's causing the issue, but also what causes or what issues this issue might be causing as well. So first off, a cause is U.S. urban flooding is a growing source of significant economic loss, social disruption, and housing inequality. Of course, flooding isn't solely the issue of the U.S. It is a worldwide issue and is likely to become even more of an issue as climate change continues. Now, J.P. Morgan have publicly acknowledged the societal threat of economic inequality. So we're seeing more and more private organizations that are addressing the issue of human rights. And with that, there's a good example of why that is. So the risk is especially serious for companies like American semiconductor manufacturer NVIDIA, which provides products used in facial recognition technology that could be used by the Chinese or any government to enable human rights violations. However, it could possibly preserve human rights as well. Now let's take a look at the worldview, or what some of the discourse is going on about this topic, and how are people and organizations addressing the issue. So first off, Al Gore has become the latest environmental campaigner to express solidarity with the protesters for racial justice facing increasingly violent crackdowns across the U.S. He's warning that the need for climate action is bound together with the struggle for racial equality and liberation. Also, under last year's Hong Kong Human Rights Democracy Act, the U.S. could impose sanctions on Chinese government officials and security authorities for violating the basic freedoms and rights of the Hong Kong people. However, this issue actually comes at the same time that the U.S. is dealing with its own human rights concerns. Now we're going to dig a little deeper into the metaphors or the myths, the sayings that we often make or often say about an issue that may or may not actually be substantiated. So, for instance, two global megatrends will dominate the 21st century: urbanization and inequality. Now, this is an interesting one because we can substantiate this on some level. Many organizations are still expecting that by 2050, the world's population will be 60% urbanized. So 60% of our global population will be living in cities. And as more and more people move into cities, their disparity will become more and more obvious, which can lead to social tensions. And so however, that is one of those things that we take for granted. Also, freedom in the 21st century will be won and lost in cyberspace. This is definitely something that a lot of people are taking for granted at the moment. So in the US, the war might be fought on the city streets and in Hong Kong as well. War might be being fought on city streets, but the keyboard warriors will be the ones who actually win or lose this fight. And again, it's not saying that this is a myth and is not true. It is saying that it's largely unsubstantiated and accepted broadly. And so it is something that we need to consider whether or not this is true. All right. Well, those are our key forecasts from the Human Rights Trend Alert. You should see the whole trend alert by clicking the link below. If you need any help making sense of the forecasts or developing strategies for your organization, be sure to contact us here at Shaping Tomorrow. Thank you for your time. Have a great day and happy futuring.